I wanted to be a storyteller, but I didn't know what to do yet. And she was like, why don't you just tackle a project that you can actually publish? And we were like, well, it doesn't cost anything to make a YouTube series.
Yeah. Well, and at the time too, I was doing like video game tutorial stuff on YouTube. So I was like, well, I know how to handle YouTube. I've been editing videos. And it was like, why don't we just kind of do kind of like a partial animation?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Demi Learning Show. This is Gretchen Rowe, and I am so excited to welcome this lovely young couple that I happened to meet at a homeschool conference 9 months ago. I was so excited to walk past them and watch them working on their cartooning skills and their storytelling skills. And I want to welcome Christian and Kelsey Howard today to talk to you all about the art of cartooning, but also the art of storytelling, because I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation today. And let's get started. Will you all please be so kind as to introduce yourselves?
I'm Kelsey Howard. This is my brother, Christian Howard. And we grew up as homeschoolers.
And we work, right now, primarily we work on comic books, but we tell stories. So now I'll let her continue with
Okay.
her.
We grew up homeschooled. I always loved to tell stories, and I would always be like, okay, Christian, you got to listen to me tell you this story because I need to get this out and I don't have time to write it down. And so then Christian would be like, okay, that's fine, but I want a character in this, because we would kind of act it out as we would walk around our neighborhood and get our PE in. And then that grew into kind of a couple of realizations. One was he grew up and he didn't like writing until he got into Running Start, kind of a college prep association.
It was like a college classes for high school students.
Yeah.
So it was like my last 2 years of high school, I went into a community college and did some college. So I got to do like English 101 and different things like that.
So I'm going to interrupt y'all for just a second. Christian, you're saying that you were not fond of writing until that point in time?
Yes. Yeah. So
that's going to be an encouragement for a lot of moms out there who are just banging their heads against a wall trying to get their sons to write.
Yeah, I did not like the whole like parsing a sentence. I didn't like the whole, I mean, Mad Libs were fun because you got to like put in some of your own goofy things, but I never really considered that like writing when I was a kid. It was always just like, this is the game. Even though if you're looking at it through a homeschool perspective, it's like, this is still learning. Like it's still technically working on a subject.
Because it's like, it's what nouns are, adjectives, like verbs, things like that.
Yeah,
and where to put them and stuff.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, and it totally was the Lord, but when I was doing English 101, the teacher that I had, the way he was instructing things and talking about the books that were there, or that he was particularly going through, and the types of messages that were being said that weren't being outright said were so fascinating to my brain that something clicked, and I was like, oh, there's like way more to writing than just what you put down. It's also what you're telling the audience subtly by not saying something, or what you're visually making a character wear, or maybe, so sometimes they do this in movies too, is where they have a character say something at the beginning and then a second character later in the movie will say it back to the character, and it means something different, maybe something better, maybe it's kind of like that moment where the character is going to do something sacrificially and they say the thing back to kind of show that kind of that kinship between the two characters or whatever. But it's kind of that essence of they say something beyond what's actually being said. And
right,
we can do that even in conversation and things like that, but it's more ad-libbed than when you write a story. You're making it more planned and intentional. Yeah.
So now, Christian, were you a reader at that point in time? Did you enjoy reading, or?
I enjoyed reading more than I did when I was a kid. I didn't exactly enjoy the types of books that they were having me read in the class, kind of the way it was going, because we were in Washington State when I took college. And so it was more of like, oh, read like the books like 1984 or Fahrenheit 451 or kind of these depressing books. We got Great Gatsby, which I actually kind of like Great Gatsby.
You're probably in a vast minority for young men to say that. So that's pretty interesting.
But so we had like Great Gatsby, and then we had some other off the wall once. But yeah, so about the time I was going to Running Start, which is what it was called out in Washington for the college high school kind of crossover, Kelsey went to DigiPen Art Institute of Technology in Redmond, Washington.
Yes. Earlier, I had started taking art classes in community college, which helped me a lot because I realized, oh, I can draw anything, right? I don't know why it helped me click that way, but you did a lot more like observing like real things or doing the like bowls of fruit things and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it was painting and it was charcoal drawing, which are difficult mediums to just jump into. But because I got the chance to kind of practice at them and really like spend some time getting them to look good, it helped build confidence. And then from there, DigiPen was of interest to me because it had an animation degree and it was close enough that I could still live at home, which would help with cost. So
Sure.
I did a couple years of that. And the best part about their program was that they had folks that had worked for Disney. They'd worked on Lion King, they'd worked on Lilo and Stitch. They taught me a lot about even like how to draw creatively. I had one teacher who pointed out you sort of think about things like it's coming up off the page, but you need to think about things like there's no page at all, like you're drawing in space. And that helped a lot with like starting to even get my nuts and bolts figured out for drawing. And then there were other disciplines as well and books as well that were great help. But then after the couple of years, I was getting into 3D animation. I didn't have a taste for that, and I slowly realized I didn't have. So there's two ways to bring something to life through two-dimensional art, I would say. The one way is animation that involves making something, one drawing, look like it's moving by adding a bunch more drawings that look very close and similar to it until you get to another drawing that's still supposed to be the same
finale
character.
or whatever. Yeah.
The other way is to basically what I do here, and that is to render it like it's a painting, right? And give it a background.
And then kind of sequentially, where
Yeah.
you have, maybe you have the same scene in the background, like on this page here,
Mm-hmm.
but all of the actions that the character are doing are not necessarily like one-to-one.
No.
Your brain can put in that it's like, oh, the character has to do a couple other things before they get to this frame.
Yeah.
Right. And
I
not
see.
necessarily is that a perfect example with this page, but well, I guess here, like, he's shocked because his phone vibrates. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit. He's shocked because his phone vibrates, and then he puts the stick down. But we also have to know, like in this shot, he kind of has to, the top one, he has to grab the stick to put it down, right?
Sure.
So there's a couple things you have to fill in, but you still kind of get the motion in your brain. You kind of fill in.
His reaction is the same one I have when my phone vibrates in my pocket. And you would think, after all this time, we would reach to the point where you'd be used to that. But some of us
especially when
aren't.
you're like listening to something or you're like sitting and working and like, oh, like I gotta think about this a little harder, and then Buzz goes, "Whoa!" Right? So, but anyway, the point is that you can put in more background, you can put in more details on the characters and stuff, because you don't have to make them like move, right? So I feel like that's the two ways two-dimensional artists, cartoonists bring things to life, and I really like the book version of it, the more painty look and putting in a background and kind of, hopefully drawing the reader into this picture of a world that then they can imagine and continue on, right?
Sure. So what is the primary medium that you work in now?
For this one, the primary medium I would say truly is pencil. But when we're doing a finished work, right, it's digital coloring. So Christian will ink it on paper, and then we'll scan it, separate it from the white, and then.
So this is like one of our comic pages in the pencil stage.
Wow.
So Kelsey
it's
uses
very detailed.
Yes. Kelsey uses a blue pencil to kind of go over the initial details, and then she'll use the graphite pencil to finish it out. And then I will do inking over the top. Yeah. So just so you kind of get an idea of how Kelsey uses paper.
So this really requires a great deal of collaboration between the two of you. And
I don't think it does for everybody, but for us, it helps a lot to collab.
And as siblings, Were you always collaborative? I know that's a question that's probably in the back of some moms' minds.
That's fair. I think up until I know for sure up until I was 5, I was like, why did my perfect single, like, only child life get interrupted by a sibling? So,
I
and
think
then
my eldest daughter might have said the same thing about her brothers.
But shortly
But
after
then we
that,
just kept interrupting them, so we added we gave her 4 more siblings on top of her younger brother,
there you
so
go.
well, and we did eventually get to a point a few years after that where the two of us were like, "Oh man, it'd been so great if there had been 3," right? So, yeah, because
Sure.
I mean, and it wasn't because we disliked being with each other, it's because we enjoyed being with each other so much that we're like, "Surely 3 siblings would have been better," right?
Well, as an only child, I will tell you that sibling bond is fascinating to me, and that's probably why I married a guy who's one of 5,
Oh, yeah.
because I think it's there's something unique and really special. So at what point did you guys say, "Wow, we really should professionalize this and become a team working together"?
So I feel like that's hard to answer like in one particular moment, but I think the first moment probably where it started was actually before Kelsey even went to DigiPen. I think it was 2011, right? Because that was when
Mhm.
we started the YouTube channel.
I think it was about then.
So in 2011, our mom, well, it might have been early 2011 or maybe 2010. Our mom was like, "You guys need to get a story out somewhere."
Well, I had graduated. I was going through kind of a phase of turmoil of knowing I wanted to do something artistic. I wanted to be a storyteller, but I didn't know what to do yet. And she was like, "Why don't you just tackle a project that you can actually publish?" And we were like, "Well, it doesn't cost anything to make a YouTube series."
Yeah. Well, and at the time too, I was doing like video game tutorial stuff on YouTube. So I was like, well, I know how to handle YouTube. I've been editing videos. And I was like, why don't we just kind of do kind of like a partial animation? And so we did, we call it, or I think Pixar actually labeled them animatics.
Yeah.
But it's basically where like you have still images and maybe a couple objects kind of just moving gradually just to kind of hint
Mm.
that there's supposed to be some motion and things like that. And so we did animatics on YouTube, and we started with the story Caged. And we finished the story in 2020. So it took us 9 years to complete it. But that was because Kelsey had school, I had school, we had different things going. And then we'd hit certain points where we weren't sure if we wanted to finish the story. No, we need to finish the story. How do we want to finish the story?
And like artwork wise, it's all over the place because you have like a couple episodes that are full color, but the artwork's not very good. And then you have later episodes that are like scribbly, very storyboard looking episodes. And then you finally have
Kind of our more refined
or
episodes.
more refined
But they're
episodes.
black and white.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to find our feel for the story. And as we went along, we were like, the story really kind of feels more 1920s, 1910s ish. And so it would be
Yeah.
fun if it was black and white. And so we kind of, because we transitioned from color to black and white to go into this kind of storyboard stage, because we just wanted to get the story out, we decided to stay with the black and white, but make it more detailed and more sophisticated looking. So right now the story's kind of all over the place. We have ideas to go back and do it again, but we got other projects that we're also trying to do right now too.
It's all if parents are interested in watching it, there is some violence in it.
Not, I mean, there's gunshots, but nobody gets hurt except robots.
Yeah. Well, one guy dies though, so
One guy dies. Oh, that's right. The bank. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
But we
You
don't
guys,
show
it's your
anything.
story.
There's no blood in it. And so it's like I take let there be parental discretion, but it's on YouTube. They can check it out on the Whimsical Sort channel on YouTube and watch all of it.
And of course, we'll make sure that gets put into the show notes so parents can go and visit that afterwards. So, this is not then the only gig that you all have going on.
So we currently are working on a commission for Flip Flop Spanish.
So they made a little AI book. Well, really what it was is they won a competition, and so they got to make a book with AI. And it's called Flip and Felipa. But they didn't like how it came out because they didn't really have control over the visuals and a lot of it, because it was basically just throw all this stuff into the AI and then we'll give you this book. So
Okay.
so they made us at one of the conventions that we were at last year, and Brad, the husband of the duo that do the flip flop Spanish, he saw what we did and he was like, we'd really like you guys to make a comic for us, because their curriculum has a very comic book-esque kind of theme to it.
So that's
So
our current
Kelsey's in the midst of doing concept art for it, and we didn't feel right showing concept art because we don't really have the okay to show it yet. But
Sure.
we are working on it, and we're hoping to do some like updates on our site as well, because we have a newsletter that we put out with all the projects that we're working on and stuff like that too.
So as siblings, how is that collaboration as adults? What happens when you all disagree? Or maybe you don't.
No, we do. It's usually a matter of you get hot, you get mad for a little bit, and then you say, "Okay, I need time to process this," and you take a step back. And usually, this doesn't always work out this way, but I feel like usually the ones I remember are the ones I lose, right? But the deal is that when I step back and think about it, I start to realize, no, there's logic to why Christian thinks this way, and it actually would be like either more efficient or more reasonable to do it the way he's thinking, right?
A lot of the times what we will probably get into arguments over is we'll try to analyze Kelsey's pencil work in the comic before I even ink it, because once you ink it, it's basically permanent unless you have the ability to go onto the computer and do some editing there, which we have occasions where we do that, but we try to keep that to a minimum because we like it on the paper. A lot of times we'll try and look it over before I start inking it, but then sometimes there's just certain things that I only catch because I'm staring at it so much when I'm inking that it's like, oh, I can't ink this part, like panel yet, because this character's leg is like way too long, or this object that they're supposed to be handling is much smaller than in the previous shot.
Yeah.
So those ones will, especially if like Kelsey's gone several weeks after working on the page, she's gotten to that point in her emotions where she's settled to it's done, and then you go, oh, I need like this and this changed, and it's like, I thought I was done with that page. So it's not so much like she's necessarily upset because I'm wrong, or because maybe mom sees it and like mom's wrong, but it's more like you had this like security blanket that you put over the top of it, and now the security blanket's been like ripped off, and so now your emotions are like, no, I don't want to have to do that. But
Right.
Well, that's
Sure.
a lot of times she'll calm down after like an hour or so and be like, no, you're right, I gotta do it.
Yeah. And I'm usually happy I did. So
Yeah, but when there is a certain degree as an artist, you've put your time and your effort and your energy into it. You don't necessarily want to say, oh, well, sure, I can redo this because I didn't get it right the first time. And
that's
so,
true. Although it is funny, I'm realizing a lot of life. This is for better or for worse, right? I worked for a time as one of the food demo ladies at
mhm.
Costco, and whenever you would do dishes at the end of the day, it was never all the dishes that you did well that someone would see. It was always that one spot that got missed, like on this bowl or that bowl. I remember so many ladies talking about, oh, so and so, she's so bad at dishes. She missed that spot on that bowl again, and things like that. And so much of life is like that. It's like, so if I get it wrong in the comic and it's just whatever, everyone's gonna see it. They're not gonna see the rest of the page. If it was the most gorgeous page like ever done on earth, and it had one spot that was like someone's like index fingers too long or something, everyone would see that finger. Nobody would see the rest of that page. So
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that in our human condition, we tend to focus on the things that are out of order instead of the goodness of the things that are in order?
that's true.
Yeah.
I think there's good and bad to that. I think you're right. In a lot of ways it's negative, where it's like, is that showing we're not thankful for the things that do go right? But on the other hand, it's like, if it makes us better, then it actually is kind of good that we do see that, right?
Right.
So I don't
Right.
know. They're just getting back.
So how is your collaborative process then when you all go through from beginning to end for a drawing? How long does that take to do that?
It can depend. So the story that we're currently working on, at least our fantasy story, because each of our comics comes with 2 stories. But
Okay, now you got to back up because I knew that, but I had forgotten it. So answer my question and then we'll go back to why is it 2 stories?
Okay.
So,
Okay. So at least with our fantasy story, the storyline for that one has been in development for about 12 years. So the script writing has gone through probably 10 drafts. And most of that is because when I started, I wasn't very good at writing. And I didn't have a lot of practice writing. So that I would say is probably most of the reason why it took 12 years. But definitely, 6 years of that was developing it with the basis of the story where it's at now, trying to kind of get certain things tweaked out and stuff like that. Potentially like 6-ish years for this particular story where it's at. And then it took us.
Well, I was gonna say, if we can get into a comic itself.
Yeah.
So for a comic itself, this one took us about.
Which is our first one.
This one took us over a year to do, but this one took us, and this is both stories, by the way. So this one took us over a year. This one took us less than a year.
Yeah, like I think it was 18 months for this one, and then 8 months for this one.
So maybe you're learning as because this would be an encouragement to someone who's learning the process.
Yes.
You get better at the process, so it
more efficient
becomes more efficient, right?
And to add to that, this one is fewer pages than this one is. So first one, longer, fewer pages. Second one, shorter time, more pages.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But we understood the process better and how to do it.
But anyway, in about that 8 to 9 months, we have the script. I go over the script. I kind of put a mark around how long I want a page to be, because Christian will number the frames. He won't necessarily give me actual pages, because he gives me the flexibility to say, I want this many on this page, etc. And then I will create a storyboard version, which is basically just taking letter paper, folding it in half, and then scribbling out what I want the pages to look like. So you basically have a rough comic done by then. And then I get into penciling. And that was the blue and pencil pages, full size.
Well, I love what you're saying about this because it parallels a writing process as well.
Oh, cool.
And probably one of the most difficult things we have as instructors for our kids is teaching them that the first draft is not the final draft. You have to expect that there will be iterations along the way. So
well, and part of the reason with the story it took so long to write was because I knew I didn't want Kelsey to have to draw a bunch after I'd only done 3 drafts, and then we got to change this draft drastically, and then she has to go back and draw a lot. So we actually even had a point where I was working through the script, and we had someone that we knew was like, are you just being a perfectionist about this? When are you going to be to a point where she can actually just start drawing? And it was like, to some degree, kind of being perfectionist, but to another degree, it's like art costs a lot more money. And that, like, she's my sister. I don't have to pay her per se, but the more art we do, the more time it takes and the more it costs time-wise to get then the next round of storyboards or whatever out. So, and to do the entirety of this fantasy story, it took Kelsey a year to storyboard it out because there was 24 to 26 chapters
at the time.
So it took her a whole year just to storyboard that out. But we have a storyboard version all together, so we know where this story's going, and we're really excited about it, and we're really pleased with it. But we didn't want to have to do storyboards more than a few times at the most. So
sure, and that makes sense. So you're planning your work, and then you work what you've planned. What advice would you have to the aspiring cartoonists and storytellers who will watch this? How would you give them encouragement? Where would you tell them to go?
Do go to our website, because we do have some videos.
And name the website for us.
Yeah, thewhimsicalsort.com. We have some videos. We try to put them out more regularly, but they're not always as regular. But we have some videos. They're called Finny Doodles. and they kind of explain why you do certain steps of the process. I would, like Kelsey said earlier, definitely recommend going to the library and looking up comic book inking, comic book lettering, comic book illustrating comics the Marvel way. Is that one book?
Yeah, I'm not sure how accessible that is at libraries, but
Yeah.
illustrating comics the Marvel way is a good start. Storyboarding books is a good start. I'd recommend cautiously the Flight series. It's an anthology of comics of different comic artists putting in short stories, but it introduces you to a bunch of different styles and a bunch of different storytelling. It does get weird in some of the stories.
Kind of more the philosophy.
A little parental guidance along the way.
Yeah.
Be open to discuss it, right?
Because we do wholeheartedly believe in looking at different comic books and things like that, just to study kind of how do they do things and things like that. But one of the ones that we found that was really fun was the Doppelganger Chronicles. He does partial comic, partial novel. It was actually the inspiration for us to actually start getting into comic books, or at least for me, because Kelsey was like, oh, we could do pages that are part novel, part comic. And then we had a friend who said you need more pictures, so then we just went full comic. But it's a really good series. As far as I know, he only has 3 books out, but they're all really good.
And so on the whimsical sort, you had said to me, and let me make sure I say this correctly, that through the 23rd of September, if folks want to really see your comics and climb into them, there's a discount code and it's TWS925. And of course, I'll make sure that that's included in the show notes because I think you should dig here a little bit further. You might find some really interesting stuff from these clever young people who are collaborating so awesomely.
Really quick on that code, it's if you buy anything $30 or more, because we have a bundle with both comics. And then we also have a biblical reflection guide that we make that highlights some themes from one of the comics. So that's a $30 bundle that we have on the website.
That's awesome. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure to host you both today. As you guys can see, they're taking off with something really amazing. And I hope you find merit in visiting their website. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and it did not disappoint. Thank you all so much. And
thank you,
we thank you who joined us today live for allowing us to come into your living room, and we'll look forward to doing that again soon. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.